very much, Professor Rockwell. And there are some questions in the chat, and I think it's a little bit maybe close to most of what you have already discussed. So the first question is asking, now that we have read about Tapo and his collections of two Voyant and his collections, as well as even the programming historian, which the link, but he's also asking, what are the basic tools to set up the lab itself, like to the physical lab,
Yeah.
and are licenses required? And then the second question is, how do I find the right team who share the same vision? Like someone else is asking, is asking, collaboration with people who share the same vision. So those are the two questions in the chat.
Yeah. So the right tools. So it'll depend partly on the project that you're doing. So, if you're an archaeology project, it's going to be a very different set of tools. But I'm going to assume that what we're talking about is people working with literary or linguistic materials. So typically, you need a scanner if you have manuscripts of some sort or another. You need a scanner. You need OCR tools if they work in your language, and it's interesting how some of these general purpose AI tools are actually getting very good at OCR of handwriting. But I would recommend there are tools you have to pay for them, but like Transcribus is a tool. It's not open, but it is a sort of community maintained tool, and it uses machine learning. So if you're trying to do OCR in a language, you could sort of work to train a model that improves the OCR on the particular language that you're working. So OCR gets you from, if you will, paper or manuscript to the raw text. Then what you need is you want to proofread and enrich the text, and do not use Microsoft Word. So that's the first thing. You need to understand, and this is where it's really, in some ways, it's the tools are not expensive. It's the understanding. You need to understand how to create a sustainable, long-term scholarly electronic text. So it's got to be a text file. You've got to understand markup, XML markup. You want to invest the time to understand TEI. All of this is cheap. You can get a text editor for free on your computer, but you need to understand how to do XML. So it's the learning. And, you know, if anyone wants, I am happy to give a 1 hour lesson on XML or something like that. But you probably have people who know it in your community. You then typically have to develop. Let's say you're doing a whole mess of novels by a particular writer. You want to develop a document schema. It's like the protocols so that all those novels are marked up and enriched in the same way. You have to make decisions about, all sorts of decisions, and these are humanities decisions. What does this name refer to? Who is this person? If you're trying to create named entity linking and stuff like that. But there are some useful XML editing tools like Oxygen. So that one, it doesn't cost a lot. It's a good XML editing tool that gives you a lot of facilities, but you can do it just in a plain text editor. I use BB Edit. Um, so that's the enrichment. And this is where it's people, 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 because you need people who understand XML. Then, if you want these texts to be readable on the web, you need somebody who understands cascading style sheets and helps you build those. And then, an XML file and cascading style sheets, you just put it on a web server. You don't need anything fancy. And then if you want to study these texts, you need some text analysis environment. And you'll be all surprised that I recommend Voyant to you. It's free, it's open, you can install it on your own machine, you can set up your own server. If you want to go the next step and publish your electronic texts to be available to others, then you need to get access to some form of server. And you don't particularly need fancy software on the server. I mean, you can just sort of make them available. We have the capacity in Voyant and Spidal we can host your texts, and you can in effect have a page where people can get access to them right there. But there's all sorts of people. In fact, you should be You should be generous. If you've done these electronic texts, you should give them to all sorts of people. There's a great project around maintenance and sustainability called Locks. Lots of copies keep stuff safe. University of Alberta has a digital repository. Deposit stuff. I'm sure you can find digital repositories all over the world, and just deposit it so that even if you lose interest completely, the stuff is there and somebody can use it. So there you are. It's uh and I like somebody's got the physical gadgets. Yeah, you need some laptops, you need a room, you need stable electricity. I don't know if the server has to be in the lab. I would join up with some people. Managing servers takes real skill, and there's nothing more annoying than servers that go down in the middle of the night. So wherever possible, work with a university computing service if you can. So that was one part of the question. Augustine, can you remind me of the other part of the?
Yes, another person, you have answered that's Joseph's question has been answered. Onwabwene question, Emily, is how do I find the right team who share the same vision? And then I think that also aligns with another question that comes in from Matthew Obijeku, which is, Professor, thank you for your presentation. What is DH all about?
Yeah. So I think on Monday we're going to have another 4-hour lecture on what DH is all about. But I'm going to start with the right team. So the right team is a people issue, and I'm willing to bet that some of you are better with people than I am. So I am not necessarily the best person. I can tell you that some of the approaches I have taken, and they haven't always worked. But the first approach is I am willing to trust anyone. If somebody says they want to be part of the team and want to do something, I'll go for it. We'll work out something they want to do. And sometimes they have different priorities and they leave and go to a different university, and that's just the way it goes. Secondly, I try to never exploit students. I try. I mean, I'm sure I do. So I try to, where possible, get funding or some sort of support. So they're not working for free. They could be getting credit for a course, a reading course or something like that. But I don't think it's a good idea to depend on free labor. One type of way of supporting people is credit. That's what you do with colleagues. When you and a colleague agree to write a paper together, you're not paying them, they're not paying you, but you're agreeing to share credit, which leads to something that's very important. At the beginning of project, when everybody is happy with each other, you should put together some form of charter, even if that charter is just a napkin. Just actually take the time to explicitly discuss what do you expect to get out of it? How will this project end? How does somebody get out of the project if they're tired with it? What's going to happen when people let down the side, when they don't finish something or something like that? Who's going to get credit? So actually sit down and talk about that. And if you give me a moment, there's a good paper, and I can send a PDF if you don't have access to it, written by my old colleague Stan Rucker on charters, on project charters. Um, he wrote it with Milena Radoskowska.
Okay, we know that language models are such kind of computer tools as a subset also of generative AI that does majorly only to generate text, and it is linguistically bedrocked. That is the foundation of that model in computer is linguistics, language. So over the time, as we already know, in humanities, we deal with text. It's text that is our corpus, it's text that's our data that we explore in order to interpret. And most of the time, many people used to argue that the computer cannot really interpret the text, but it is also it is only a means of extending our brain, just like what Yohanna said, that it extends our brain. It just to help us to like to instigate us, to push us to interpret text. So large language models are computer AI, a computer model that's been trained. We train it through fetching some text also. We can do it manually by ourselves from our lab, from our archive, or we automate it to scrape websites, to look into some book, and to gather some information, data ethically. Ethically in this sense is that we have to give credit to the owner. We have also to follow according to the rule of copyright of our country or global copyright permission for us to get those things in order. And the AI is just artificial intelligence that we know that that we use to help us to do something like human-like. But today, artificial intelligence is growing into the field of like consciousness and also critical thinking, which is very dangerous for us because what remains with man normally in this era is what? Is our critical mind. Now, through neural networks, artificial neural networks, we are seeing that actually a machine now is like reasoning, is like having some emotion, which is not like existing before. But as what is making us also to be reasonable as human beings is the kind of the collection of data that we put in our memory and in our brain. So the computer is being programmed nowadays also to stick in that pattern by also reading different kind of books and make some conclusions, some decisions, and summarize it for us. And actually, that's what our brain normally does. When we read plenty, we are stimulated, we're inspired by the number of the text we have read in order to produce another text. It's just what I see is as what recycling of text. There are examples of this. We want to call LMS, that is large language model, in the African context. Though what people know almost everywhere is generative pre-trained transformer, GPT, Claude, Llama, and all the rest. But we have, thanks to some Africans, Adebara and his group in Alberta, that is the same university at where Austin is, they have developed African-based large language models. I don't know if you are with me. Let me know whether my network is working. Hello.
We are with you. We are with you, Yohanna. You may just want to put your screen in a full screen so that we can know the slide, or we can also see the text closer, what you are sharing.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
yes.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Are you seeing my text now? Okay. We have some example here now. Serengeti and Cheetah is also African large language models that we know. We can use African language to query those large language models developed in the University of Alberta in Canada by one Nigerian and some Africans. So we have all those models that also recognize our language. But now, most of what we have to discover, that we have to know, is that a lot of African languages, a lot of African languages are low resource languages, and that is why lack of data and lack of corpus girls in order to fetch a trained machine are limited. But most of our major languages have already been digitized, and we use them to do translation from English or from Spanish to our local languages, such as Igbo, such as Swahili, Hausa, and the other languages. So, but those models are limited. they are not, not every language is there. For example, the last research we conducted in 2024, we discovered that Edivio and Margi cannot be used to query computer because they are low resource language kind of languages. So we were not able to use those models to query computer. Thanks to this innovation, we have now started having African languages also used. Recently, in Yaoundé, we were able to train some models for Mozilla Common Voice in order to query computer, get translation, generate text in local languages. So, by God's grace, before the end of this year, a lot of some Cameroonian languages and also Nigerian Pidgin and Igbo can be used via ChatGPT and other language models. I think today ChatGPT also understands Nigerian Pidgin. So thanks to God that we are reaching there through the work of our colleagues. Now, what are the possibilities in research that we have? You know, in those days, in the previous days, in the traditional humanities, we will not be able to like study 1 million books in order to come out with new knowledge. But thanks to these language models and also AI, we can query about 1 million textbooks at the same time, and then get within limited time, we get our results. But those things cannot be done unless we digitize our languages. We also help annotate the languages and make them to be resourceful for this kind of exercise. Then we can also query computer through these large language models to help us also to preserve our cultural heritage, more especially our language and some artifacts. For example, building corpus that we will be using to connect them to big data, so that we will be getting our own voice also and our digital artifacts also in the mainstream kind of the Internet of Things and the big data. Now, we have real-world possibilities to explore research. Today, we have AI-driven cross-reading. That's what we call just querying large archives and all this to get what we want to get for our researches. Then, through large language models, we can resurrect or we can bring back some of our dead languages. For example, there's a language in Adamawa State that's going to extinction. We call it Holma. But I was surprised when I went to some databases, I was able to see Holma again, like as if it is still existing language. So thanks to the AI and the large language models, also we are able to still see such kind of language coming back. Okay, we can also use those kind of large language models also to do sentiment analysis. That is to like analyze emotions in the text, whether negative or positive. Okay, to also look at the valence. That is the valence. That's negative or positive kind of information within the text. It's all this AI and these large language models built through natural language processing that made us to have all those things. So in digital humanities research, these are the things that we do and that help us to like harness our research, to make our research also to be like more like those experimental sciences. You know, before they used to tell us that we in the humanities, what are we doing? We are just only doing table text, kind of desktop analysis, sitting on our office and read books only. But now things have changed through the intervention of computer, integration of computer into our studies. We feel like being scientific, like pure science. And that's where interdisciplinary kind of studies also come in, because we are now into computer science and humanities. And actually, that is what gives birth to this digital humanities we're doing today. Then we can, there is what we call also co-creation. That's what we call symbiotic kind of authorship, where we collaborate with AI today to do review of our books or to write our assignment, because the large language model has been trained in that direction through machine learning and deep learning. What are the limits? These large language models and AI cannot be 100% trusted, because if they are fed with data that are biased or that has some errors, the computer sometimes cannot figure out those errors. So the data, the results that the outputs that we wish to get, we may get those errors, and computer also may hallucinate. Maybe, for example, you are asking computer to describe somebody, then you will mistake to somebody for another person. Instead of explaining or giving you information about a particular person or particular subject, he may bring in something that doesn't exist or doesn't collaborate or doesn't link with the information you're looking for. So we must not trust machine 100%, because there are so many people somewhere that are also feeding the machine with some data that are biased. So that's why up to now our critical thinking must come in order for us to have correct critical kind of text and data and research work. Now, the issue of governance and ethical frameworks. We know that I've already, at the opening of my message, I've already said that we need to have, we need to be ethical. Let ethics govern what we do. If we are not governed by ethics, plagiarism is inevitable. And when you plagiarize, it's academic theft. You can even lose your job for it. So that's why we must be transparent in attributing credit to who credit must be given. So we must also align with global standards. There are standards of doing all those things. We must make computers to be, the text we are using must be free of any kind of bias, so that we will not be marginalizing other group of people. Then we have to follow also the laws within that, of data policy in our country, so that we will not violate any other kind of rules for us to have data research that is acceptable everywhere. Now, what are our future directions? What do we recommend? We must also know that today, with the AI, we must implement hybrid research, and it will make our research to be easier and well informed. Because, for example, in those days, in the early 2000s, even, you cannot just do research very vast without spending a lot of money traveling from one library to another. Within free time that you have, limited time that you have in your office, you can, through the internet now and through those large language models and AI, we can we'll be able to like query large data and have what we want for our review, and also have much like many articles that we can consult at the same time to give us a good research gap that we can fill during our research. Then what we have to do, we have to foster our collaboration. And also we have to invest in ethical training and interdisciplinary teams, as we have heard even from Professor Rockwell. Now, for our core takeaway, though LLMs are very powerful engines for synthesis and pattern discovery, but it lacks inherent what? Verification mechanisms that due to what we call black box. because black box in this sense is that they are not transparent. Some of the data are not transparent. There are some hidden algorithms that used to hide some truth or how those AI work. They used to hide it sometimes. So by the time we will implement what we call artificial explainable AI, we'll be able to know actually which data and how those data are being generated, and why are those data important to us. And then we have also to buy the idea of respecting our academic integrity so that we will not find ourselves in trouble. Then we have to obey our government by also asking government also to institutionalize kind of policy that will help us to have free access to some information in order to train machines. These are the core takeaways that we have to do when we are doing our research. I will conclude by this, that we must embrace innovation responsibly and prioritize human expertise above machine, so that our future will be shared as human. Though we are coming into the era of transhumanism and posthumanism, we must know we are always human. Though we are together with machine now everywhere, non-humans are everywhere, but we must know that we are humanity scholars, we must prioritize human beings above machines. Because when you look at some of the theories and some of the scientists are saying that this machine one day may kill us, may develop their own consciousness and come back and kill humanity. But you know that we are the ones that made it. We can also look for a place where we can dislodge those machines so that they will not turn against us later. Thank you so much. This is what I have to say. If there's any questions, I'm ready for that. Thank you. Hello.
Thank you so much, Waliya. You can see physical clubs, virtual clubs, and you have really done a good, research into this presentation, which you highlighted some of the benchmark models that could help us to also handle African languages. And you also highlighted ways in which our colleagues in Africa can also make use of large language model and cautions that they need to make while using it in the way you talk about hallucination and some ethical challenges.